Okay, the recording should be started. I hope. Let me make sure that just technical difficulty, especially Teams here. I just use a new version of Teams. It gets a little complicated, turns out.
Al, it looks like it's recording.
Is it? Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, so you get a message that recorder started?
I see a little red light. It's 2 minutes.
Okay. All right, okay. Hopefully yeah, Microsoft Teams, a new version, is once you start sharing your screen, the share button, the recording button seems to disappear. So, okay, so welcome again. We are the CMRC meeting. We have quite a few topics to go over, and I'll say a few words about CMRC to remind folks that are just getting to know us, and then we'll go on with the program. We have the various speakers, and as you can see, the topics on the screen here. And I'll just talk a bit about CMRC just to get us remind ourselves what CMRC is. So I'll use a slide here that only a few slides within this the slide deck, which I used for United Way BIPOC meeting in June 4th. I won't go for the whole slide deck, and just a few chosen the first few slides. So United Way held June 4th held a BIPOC leader panel, and then in that meeting we had several panelists, and then we asked a question about what each of organizations, CMRC and other other organizations, what the purpose is. So this particular talking points that I use is to remind me how to talk about CMRC. So I'll use this as talking points. So CMRC's purpose is really ultimately was about building trust, building trusting relationship that we think of intercultural. Intercultural is beyond multicultural. Intercultural meaning that we would actually get to know each other better. We would integrate the various aspects. And so the second bullet really is about how do we integrate the BIPOC voices? That we know that we're diverse voices, we have own heritage, our cultural affinities, but if we can integrate them and amplify the integrated voice, that will make our voice more powerful. And then we also wanted to change the power dynamics, meaning that we recognize the racially marginal voice typically come to the table kind of late to this, and we get invited in, but we're not quite sure that our voice actually make any difference. By using, we also embrace co-designing, and they're championing the co-design methodology. And quite a few of our steering committee on CMRC are facilitators for co-designing, including Khadija, who's on the call right now, and a few others as well. So we embrace co-design because co-design emphasizes the fact that the voices get brought in earlier and in the process rather than after the design has already been completed. We can have the voices in the beginning of the process. And of course, we're all about sharing opportunities and responsibilities that broadly share the information typically that about what kind of grant is available, what kind of funding is available, and also sharing responsibilities. The feeling is that, of course, we hold ourselves responsible, but also want to hold, the wider community to be responsible, accountability. And then lastly, the last bullet really is about maintaining the community information hub to share information. So maybe the next slide is again. Uh, so this is about the question was asked in United Way that says, what does a community with strong BIPOC community involvement look like as compared to today? So my feeling is what will look like will be intercultural in thinking and also global in thinking. And then also recognizing that we want to maximize human resources, the usage of human resources. A lot of our BIPOC talents, we feel that it's not currently maximized, and we want to offer proactively, what we can offer, in terms of talent and our resources. Our community would become proactive in nature, will be transparent and accountable. And then we get to a point where instead of just from feeling good, we want to do good. We want to be action oriented. There's so much feeling about, we have a lot of theory, a lot of people come together sharing things, planning, but there's a lack of action to make things different. And then today, what is today like? Well, in today, we have many different plans going on as we speak today, right now. They tend to be transactional in the sense that it happens once and then information get gathered, but no follow through. That's what today. Tomorrow will be more proactive, transparent, and accountable. So I'll stop at this, and well, that is my sales pitch, okay, and then let our regular feature speaker take the podium. So Olivia, it's your turn, and I can stop sharing. And do you have slide to share? Or how do you want to do
I have a
this?
couple things I wanted to put on screen. Do I
Okay.
have permission to share?
Yeah, you should be able to share. Yep.
Cool. I think I'll start by kind of introduce myself and then I'll pull some things up as I go. But hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. This is my first CMRC meeting, and I'm really pleased to be with you all. So my name is Olivia Bergen. I am the Rochester area organizer with Isaiah, and we're a statewide organization in Minnesota that organizes people of faith and shared values. So we organize people who are in faith institutions and also neighbors who are not religiously affiliated. And we act together for racial, economic, and climate justice in Minnesota. So I organize in congregations and I organize individuals in Rochester. And a little bit of a history of where we've come from. I'm going to drop a link in the chat for you all that you can kind of feel free to take a look at. And I'm going to talk through some of what's in it, but it's kind of a packet that's shares a bit about who we are, and I'm going to talk through some of the basics of who we are, where we've been, where we're going, and along the way, I don't have like kind of a specific time at the end for questions, so I'd love to take questions along the way. Just please feel free to shout it out or to put it in the chat. But I've just put in the chat a link to kind of an intro document about who we are. And Isaiah was formed in 2000, bringing together a number of faith-based community organizations in St. Paul, in the metro area, and in St. Cloud. But since then, we have grown and diversified quite a lot, especially in the last like 6 or 7 years. So now we also have a number of different what we call rooms of the house. So there are different bases and constituencies that make up our organization. So we have congregational bases across the state, including Rochester. We have a pretty substantial and powerful Muslim coalition that organizes in mosques around the state. We have a barbershop and Black congregation cooperative, a young adults coalition, Kids Count on Us, which is our child care organizing project of over 500 independent child care centers. And a couple years ago, we founded a rural organizing project that organizes in rural townships across the state. So we all strive together to realize in Minnesota a multiracial democracy, a caring economy, and a just climate future. That's kind of our North Star. And so we're values-based. We're a nonpartisan organization. That doesn't mean that we are neutral or like we're trying to find some kind of middle ground between the two major political parties in Minnesota. What it means is that we're driven by our values and our principles, and we're trying to move the whole system in that direction towards racial, economic, and climate justice. So a little bit about where we've been. I'm wondering, so especially thinking about the last couple of years, we do work at the state and local level in Minnesota and here in Rochester, Olmsted County. And in 2023 and 2024, a lot happened at the state legislature. A lot of new legislation, policies, budgets were passed that we had worked on for some of these things for 5 to 20 years. And I'm wondering who here knows something that passed in 2023 or 2024 that you were excited about. Laura,
Okay, all right.
Oh.
I'll respond. I think that the housing initiative, housing project you're engaging in is very exciting.
Oh, yes, and thank you for coming to that event last week, Al. Something that is making more possible for housing across the state is that last year the legislature allocated $1 billion in new funding for housing that goes across the spectrum from targeting folks who are unhoused right now. Yeah, thanks, Laura. To first-time homeownership assistance, especially for folks who require alternative financing. That's really important for a lot of our Muslim leaders who don't always have access to home ownership financing that is compliant with Islam. So having fee-based loans instead of interest-based loans is important. So that was something huge that passed. What are some other things people know about that got done at the legislature the past couple of years that matter to you? And I'll share that something that's important to me is I have had, so we've done a lot of work on healthcare at the Minnesota legislature and trying to expand the public Minnesota Care program to cover up to 150,000 more people. And this is something that we worked on last year. Actually, we were able to expand Minnesota Care to cover undocumented immigrants, which is really important because those folks were not able to access that healthcare coverage previously. For me, I worked in like short-term jobs at small organizations, maybe like some of the folks on this call, for many years that were not in a position to be able to offer like job-based health insurance. Like I was doing my own payroll at these small organizations. And so I bought insurance on the marketplace. And my experience of healthcare coverage was that I couldn't, so I was paying thousands in premiums each year. I had a $9,000 deductible and the coverage was really narrow. Like when I needed mental health support and went to Olmsted Medical Center for an intake in their psychology department, and I was really excited to be getting the support that I needed at that time when I was really not doing well in my mental health. I got the bill from that appointment and it was $530 and my insurance covered $50 of that. So basically what happened after that was I had to stop seeking care because I couldn't afford $500 every time I went to therapy. And I know that, and so I felt devastated by that because I couldn't get the care that I needed. And I also felt like humiliated in a way that I should have known better, that I didn't have the right insurance to get the care I needed. And what really motivates me in my organizing around healthcare now is that I don't think anyone should not have the right insurance to get basic care that they need. So our work on healthcare is important to me. We've been working towards trying to get that expansion passed. And I would have been someone who would have benefited from this program, the public option, if it was available to me when I was in those roles. So that's something I'm excited about. I'll share that. I think I'm just going to try to share screen, and this is a little bit new for me. So let's see if this works.
I want to commend Olivia for what she's doing. I am part of Isaiah and healthcare or Faith in Minnesota. And like Olivia, been advocating the last few years. And like Al and some others, been at state capitol the last dozen years trying to coax healthcare reform and housing forward. So thank you, Olivia, for what you're doing. It's great that these organizations are collaborating together. I was on an IMAA forever, and I think there's a lot of combined efforts that can move the ball forward. So thanks to all for making it happen. Olivia, you do a great job, as well as Al.
Thanks, Doc. Can y'all see my screen okay? I'm not sure if this is working, but.
Yep, so we can see it, yep.
Yeah, so on page 4 of what I linked, these are some of the things that we, like I mentioned, worked on from between 5 to 20 years and that were passed in the past couple years of the legislature. So 100% clean energy by 2040, voting rights restoration for people who were on felony probation and parole. Previously, they would return to the community, they would be working, they would be like living in community and want to participate, but their right to vote was restricted. So that was restored last year. Paid family and medical leave, we worked on that for 9 years to be able to make sure that anyone, no matter what kind of job you were working in, would be able to get leave to care for yourself, care for a loved one or new child. And you can see, like, this is a long list of things that we accomplished, either that we were leading on or we accomplished in coalition with other partners. And so that's a little bit about where we've been. How this was possible is that, you know, we organized thousands of people to show up at the Capitol for years to set the stage for some of these wins. Tens of thousands of people contacted their legislators. We organized hundreds of letters to the editor and testifiers and committee hearings at the legislature. So we were able to make this possible with the organized efforts of hundreds and thousands of people across the state. And the governor and the Speaker of the House and other elected leaders have publicly named and thanked Isaiah for our role in what we've been able to accomplish this legislative session. And now we're not done. Like, we know there are so many more things that people are concerned about, that people are facing in their lives. I named that healthcare is one that we still have so far to go on. So last year in Rochester, and then actually we did this across the state, we held a listening campaign where we had one-to-one and small group conversations with over 500 people, talking about what were people experiencing in their lives right now? What were they concerned about, hopeful for? How did they want to see the community be different? And based on that set of 500 conversations, we wrote a local agenda and we wrote a statewide agenda of over 6,000 conversations around what we wanted to work on for the next few years. And these are kind of listed in the packet. I'll show like where we are there. Sorry, this is a little bit new for me, this style, but I think it's working. So like on page 2, this is what we wrote locally for our Rochester agenda. Y'all can see that, yeah? Okay. And then on page 3 is our statewide issue priorities. So, you know, I'm kind of curious, maybe you're seeing like here, I mean, climate justice is a huge pillar of what we're doing, democracy, so voting rights and making sure that, you know, everyday people have a voice in our political system, high quality and permanently affordable housing, affordable, accessible public health care, child care that fairly compensates teachers and that families can afford, which we do not have right now, and high quality and accessible affordable youth programming. Yes. Oh, sorry, was there a question? I can't see both things at one time. But my question for you all was, where do you kind of see yourself in this agenda? What about this agenda would be meaningful for you in your life or the people that you care about? Or maybe if you're here from an organization, from like the population that you work with, what stands out to you in this agenda that's important to you?
Olivia, I might have a different comment, maybe a question.
Sure,
Okay.
yeah. Questions?
I know that Isaiah primarily is a faith-based origin. So for some of us that are not necessarily aligned with either Christianity or the Islamic traditions, how do we and actually know that the spirit is wider than just those two faiths? So how do you attract those people that to join up that care about social justice and things like that?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking, Al. I feel like I'm uniquely answered to this because I'm not personally affiliated with any faith community or tradition. And why I'm involved with Isaiah and with Faith in Minnesota, which is our 501c4, is that I'm very values aligned with what we work around. Like healthcare access is super important to me. Housing as a human right, is a value that I align with. So we have our roots in faith-based organizing, but we've grown a lot beyond that. And so I would say probably somewhere between like a third to maybe even half of the folks who are active with us are not necessarily affiliated with a faith institution or tradition. But where those folks often come in is they see the issues that we're working on, and they see that like we're really active in the community. I know that something that matters to me and some people who have been active with Isaiah on this call probably know, is that like we are doers. Like we don't just talk about stuff, we like really go out and do it. So for me, that really matters, and that's what like kind of hooked me in, and I think that's what attracts other people as well.
Okay, thank you. Yep. Thank you for the response.
Sure. Any other reactions or reflections on, what an agenda like this, like, I mean, I'm kind of curious for you all, what would like an ideal Rochester or Olmsted County look like to you? What would be some of your hopes and dreams for our community?
Am I the only one's gonna express those thoughts?
I'd love to hear this. Maybe I'm not familiar with these meetings. They're usually one way, but I love a two-way conversation. So, Nancy, I know you have some thoughts about this. What would your hope for Rochester be?
In my slide introducing CMRC, the notion about intercultural relationship, and relationship is essential for my thinking. Isaiah, of course, is building out great relationships with a lot of stakeholders, and the CMRC is building out our own set, right?
Yeah.
And both organizations are trying to build trusting relationship within our community. Sometimes it's still struggle. Sometimes, so the challenge is how do we really bring all these relationships together and sustain it to make it rewarding and inspiring and all that. That really is what I like to see, is a community where information is really freely shared, and people know that it's trusted information, and with their opinion does count. That would be what I like to see. Right?
Yeah. I love that.
Is Nashana there? Nashana, typically, I thought I saw her on the call here. Typically, she's got some opinion about things. So, no.
Well, I will please, feel free to speak up, y'all, if you have more to share or if you have more questions. I'll kind of build on what Al was saying that I think is really important. Is what I wanted to talk about next is kind of the landscape that we're going into over the next 4 months as we approach Election Day on November 5th. No matter like where we are in like or where our community is, like among our political affiliations, like I think we all probably share a set of feelings about the election that is impending, and like I'm kind of curious for you all, because you all represent different communities, like how are you and how are your communities feeling about the political environment right now? If you could like pick a few words to describe it, like what would you say?
I just want to go ahead and answer this question. I know I was thinking for a while, but
that's allowed.
When it comes to elections, I think there's this one thing. Education is the biggest, portion of it, of just like educating our communities and just letting them know. I know you guys do so much, and we actually have a huge event coming up on July 6th that we would love if you guys ever table anywhere or you come in. We'll have a good traffic of the community coming in for you guys to come, and we can do this offline to all of you. I can send you a message on a note, but like I said, with everything that's coming, I feel like, not speaking for myself and speaking for and Fatma's in here too, for Pomoja women, we hear a lot questions regarding the presidential voting, what's going on. We're so confused if this was ever back home in our country, a lot of the things, because people watch media all the time and they get so confused on, who's telling the truth and who's not, or where to follow and not to follow. So a lot of the times it comes down to us, because they'll come while they need help with some type of resource. They'll come to you and ask you, well, I'm here anyways, explain something to me. Should I register myself to vote? Because we have, like, I remember last time we were getting people to voter registration and doing all that stuff. I had a woman who was here for 20 plus years that was a citizen and never voted, but decided to get herself into, we sent her to the city of Rochester, and she did the registration and everything. But she did that because she said, I just didn't think, like, that was something I ever wanted to do. I just didn't think my vote mattered, or or any of that. But knowing the type of education is out there, the type of resources that's out there, I feel like you guys are doing so much as Isaiah, helping the community out. And even with, sometimes with your door to door. But I feel like a lot of town halls would help getting close to the election, because now they're so confused. It's like there's school board, there's this, there's that. Like,
Yeah, there's a lot to
only
track.
vote during presidential. That's it. They don't vote. And that's why a lot of the times you see with the school board voting, like a lot of people don't go out there because they're just all like district, like, commissioners and all that stuff. They don't know who's doing what and who's who. They'll literally come to you and say, is that person a Democrat or Republican? And I feel like they'll just make that assumption and like, okay, I'm going to vote for that person, even knowing that, is that person going to be good for you? Are they what they stand for? Is it going to align with your beliefs? So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Hadija, for sharing that. And yeah, like I would love to think about how could we do that together to help.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, I'm hearing like confusion, like sometimes
Taking the
like,
fear, confusion.
asymmetry, fear. Yeah, like people are just really unsure, or like you named also in that woman who hadn't voted for a long time, kind of feeling like, what would it matter? Like, what does my voice even really count?
Yeah.
And that's something that like across cultures like is shared, that a lot of people, Harry, thank you for sharing, like also, that element of fear, of like, or do I even belong in this? Like, is this the activity for me? Do I belong here because I don't see other people like who look like me?
Yeah.
It isn't accessible to me due to language or due to like physical ability. So,
Or even gender, like, coming from a different culture and a community where we would take our men like so highly up there that, oh, they made a decision to vote on that person, and then that would go. But if the female thinks otherwise, we literally tell them like, it's not like that. They'll come to you and they'll tell you, we're like, no, it's not like that. But then they'll come back at us and say, well, you're this generation, you grew up here, you don't know anything about what happens back home. There's no like, so they always go hand in hand with back home and here. So
yeah.
sometimes, yeah, just like getting them out of their comfort zone and saying that, what, if we, just to get you to vote, if I have to educate you on every single person who's running for all the different, I will do it. I will have a day where there's a class that I put on and say, today we're all doing commissioners. Next week we're doing like, school board.
And I think that, like Wed is interested in that too, and like there's a lot of communities that are curious about that, and I'm wondering, there might be, you and I should definitely get coffee, because I've been meaning to call you for a long time. There might be others on this call, like Nishana. I want to connect with you too, because I know you're interested in some of this stuff. So yeah, I want to lift up that, like, oh my gosh, no matter like what we look like or where we come from or like what neighborhood we live in, most of us, when we think about the election this year, are feeling some combination of like despair, hopelessness, cynicism. Like, does this even matter? And there are, so like our role, or what I see, like a lot of folks on this call, and like for sure our role at Isaiah, is to, how do we like invite people out of that like cynicism and feeling of hopelessness into agency and connection around like, yes, actually we can have a voice, we can be like empowered to use it. And what could that actually look like? Like, how do we create the conditions for people to be able to like kind of cross that bridge from the normal like social conditions we're in, where we think what could it matter, into maybe it could, if we could embark on that together. Al?
Yeah, we have two people here that are running for offices. So maybe you can hear from them. How do you get your message across so that to at least reduce the cynicism or skepticism of people?
Well, for me, Al and company, ultimately, I have made a stance of ringing every doorbell in my district and giving a one-on-one opportunity to speak and freely have a conversation, to really have that, does it feel right? Does it smell right? Thought process in the conversation, and any questions that hopefully my audio is on. But can you guys hear me?
Yep, yep.
Oh, perfect, perfect.
Carl, you just explain tell us what you're running.
I am running for Olmsted County Commissioner District 3.
Yep.
And I have definitely immersed myself into many community segments. I apologize if I get the name wrong, but like Kawanda probably saw me at the Next Level conference with Buddy Lee and the Hustlers Anonymous group during that. You were there. I know you guys, or at least part of your group was there and got acknowledged at that. So those are, I guess, just being involved and being seen and connected with our community members. And I did go up with We Choose Us for that restoring the vote for our past felons. And I was also up at the Capitol with the healthcare, doing the Menshore expansion, and we were shooting for the moon with a single payer option. Unfortunately, that didn't get passed this time around. But to answer the question, how do you vet a candidate, or to say, is that the candidate for our community? Well, truly, in my whole thought process, before even getting onto the ballot, I connected with over 1,000 potential voters and received 520 signatures to get onto the ballot, with the thought process of truly representing our citizens, their voices, their concerns back into our budget and regulatory thought processes. How can you vet the fact that a candidate will say things? Well, you can vet the fact that I connected with citizens prior to even getting onto the ballot with those signatures. So I guess there's some work that was put into it. I'm an actions over words person, because words are pretty cheap and they're easy to throw around. But ultimately, so I have some tangible, you can touch it, feel it, work that was done prior to even getting onto the ballot. So maybe that's my selling point.
Thanks, Carl.
Well, Carl, I would mirror many things that you said, and I would say I'm Olmsted. I'm running for City Council Ward 2, and I would go by my emphasis on what people have done, not what they say they're going to do, but what they've done. And I encourage you to go to my site, steadservesrochester.com, and I have 40 years of service. My daughter is a refugee, immigrant, Muslim from Iraq. I'm Norwegian Jewish Lutheran. We span quite a spectrum of thought, and I would encourage anybody to directly, critically think and go to individual websites and see what people have been doing. And that's what I encourage. So I would fear not. I think you're in a great surrounding. And I'm a big fan of nonpartisan. I think Rochester, the charter like 10, 20 years ago, has really advocated, let's try to keep it nonpartisan if possible, because city issues are quite a bit different than national and state issues. So I think we can do that. But Godspeed, Stead are out, and go to my website, steadservesrochester.com. 40 years, I'm here for you. And I'm not going anywhere. I've been here forever, okay. And my daughter just bought a home here, and I'm in it to stay.
I do have a little bit to add to that, especially for the new to the Americas now segment. For me, my own personal history was that being married, my first marriage was to somebody who was new to the Americas. So my lens is a little bit different to that segment, I guess is the best way to put it. Really, truthfully, know the whole process of immigration and the things that are added to it. I went through that with my first wife. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, but needless to say, that was a lens that I was privy to that I believe most candidates would not have that experience. So those are just a couple of things that you might be able to say, hey, this guy has been in that world of new to the Americas.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your comment, candidates. In fairness to the election process, I think we need to be open to other candidates that have their message as well. So maybe one of the CMRC meeting, we would invite other people to come to. So that may be the way that we expand the message. So
Yeah.
we have about time is almost up. I'll give you a couple more minutes,
Yeah, I want to
Olivia.
just close out kind of by sharing with you all like where we're going over the next, we talked about what comes up for people around the election, and what we are organizing is a big moment in September. So it's going to be called, I'll show you all, I made one slide for this, and here it is, which is on Thursday, September 26th, from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m., we're going to be organizing a regional budget summit for Southeast Minnesota. There's going to be 4 of these around the state. And we're going to be organizing hundreds of people across neighborhoods, faith, childcare centers, and more for this event to both think about together, how can we cast a powerful vision that we all can be like voting for, and think about what are the values we want to be voting for or voting around in November, and as well as what is going to happen after November. How can we shape the state budget for 2025 to really prioritize care and justice? So demanding that we have big funding in the budget for the things that we named as priorities, like housing, climate, healthcare, education, and childcare. So would love to have you all join us for that. And even more than that, I mean, it's great to just come, but I would love for folks on this call who have an interest and think that there's curiosity in your community around how could we organize to have some more political agency together. I would love to talk with you all about that. And maybe you want to organize like from a set of childcare centers and faith institutions and community groups. We're kind of inviting those, do they want to have a certain number of people that they want to have come and wear their t-shirts or wear the same color or something to kind of show up as stakeholders in this collective call we have from our community for what do we think we want in the state budget next year. So I'm going to share in the chat like a next steps kind of like place that I would love to hear from you all. There's like 2 questions, it's like contact info if you're interested in kind of keeping in touch. And then 2 questions about how might you want to be involved around that event, or if you want to meet with me, trainings we have coming up, that kind of thing. But I invite you to keep in touch that way because I'm excited to think about what we can make possible together. And thank you for having me here.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Olivia. Whatever you share here in the chat, I will post it on our website, Community Beamers website as well. Okay, so next up, Laura, your turn to talk a bit about Three Rivers community action. And you want to share screen or? Okay.
Yeah. First, I'll just do a quick introduction because I'm new in my role, and I want to set the table for you guys a little bit. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So my name is Laura Helly. I use she, her pronouns. I am the Housing Development Director for Three Rivers Community Action. Three Rivers is a community action partnership that was founded in 1966, and our headquarters is in Zumbrota, but we serve Olmsted County in addition to Goodhue, Rice, and Wabasha County. And some of the things that we do include Head Start, transportation, smart bus kind of things. We do achieve home ownership classes to help people move into buying their first home. Weatherization, we have a homeless advocacy section, and older adult services. So we do all kinds of things across Southeast Minnesota. And then my department is housing development. So we are developing affordable housing, and I get to have a pretty much as big as I want geography. So we've developed housing in Alexandria and all the way down to Kasota. Does anybody know where Kasota is? It's like 700 people by St. Peter. So yeah, Lori's got it. So that's the Three Rivers elevator speech. Al asked me to come and share today some information, and I'm going to move fairly quickly through the slides because the whole document is available to you. Al can share that with everybody. And also because this is information I presented last week at the event that I think a lot of you were at, the Isaiah's Homes for Our Neighbors event. So I don't want to be repetitive.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah.
I lost my sound for a second.
Okay.
I don't want to be repetitive. I do want to be informal. So feel free to ask your questions kind of as we go. I'm going to share screen. Okay, can you see slide?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So housing, of course, is a super complex issue, and it's connected with nearly everything else in our communities. But to simplify things down to a ridiculous level, in Rochester, the community is growing, housing costs are rising, employers need workers, people want to work where they live, and the in-demand jobs don't pay enough to rent or buy housing. So that's our current situation. To quantify that, over the last 5 years, median rent has gone up 15%, and median home value has gone up 24%. These are the 2023 numbers. Over $1,000 rent is the median. Just under $250,000 for house value is median. My guess is the 2024 numbers will even go up from there. And then I mentioned, the most in-demand jobs just aren't paying what you would need to make to purchase housing. So these are the blue bars represent the 5 most in-demand jobs in the county. 3 of those 5 are around the $30,000 annual wage, and that's not enough to even rent a 2-bedroom apartment without being cost burdened. One of the jobs pays about $52,000, which means that you could afford to rent an apartment, and one of the 5 jobs makes $75,000, which is what you'd need to afford to buy a house. So what are people doing to cope? These are just some sort of examples or ideas, and some of you are probably seeing this in real time, sort of on the front lines. Here's a family, Hernandez Ramirez family. Dad's a janitor, mom's a part-time LPN. They have an infant and a preschooler on $64,000 income. They have decided to prioritize safe and clean housing, and so they rent a very nice apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment for almost $2,200. And so they're considered cost burden. They're paying more than 30% of their income toward housing. Too far. So another example is the Washington family. So mom is a single mom. She has an infant and 2 school agers. She works in retail at $31,500 of an annual income. She can't afford the median rent or even really close to it. So she has made the choice to lease a basement out of someone's house. She's paying $700 a month. It's off the books. It's not safe because there are no fire exits from the basement. So this is a kind of choice that someone would make in a community where the housing is scarce and expensive. Next one is the Lee family. Jordan Lee is a customer service rep at a hotel chain, and he's the legal guardian of his younger brother at $42,000 of annual income. They can just barely make a median rent payment, but are unable to find any apartments at that rent, and so they are paying what they can to a friend to stay in the living room. That's considered doubling up or housing insecure. So this is another way to cope with a lack of housing in the community. And then we have the Youssef family. It's mom and dad. They both work full-time, a home health aide and a child care worker. They have $78,000 in annual income. They are squeezing their family with all 6 of their children into a 2-bedroom townhome. They are spending more than 30% of their income on housing, and they're overcrowded. They actually qualify to get a housing choice voucher from the Olmsted County HRA, which would help pay a portion of their rent, but you can only use a voucher in a home that's considered not overcrowded, and they can't find a 3 or 4 bedroom home that would qualify for voucher use. And so I think you have 60 days typically to find that place to live, and they weren't able to find it and had to turn the voucher back over. So another kind of scenario that's happening in our communities as people try to cope. So cost-burdened county households, we see 14% of homeowners, that's over 6,500 households, that are cost-burdened. This means they're paying more than 30% of their income into housing. 46% of renters, almost half, are considered cost burden, and 23% of renters are considered severely cost burden. That's paying 50% or more of their income for their housing. Overall, you've got 14,000 cost burdened households in the county. That's 23%. And why is housing so important? Just a reminder. If you've got a family in a appropriate home and paying less than 30% of their income for it, they're more stable at that address. They're staying in safe and sanitary conditions. They have more money to spend on food, healthcare, and education. They're able to build savings and have more robust financial health. They have improved mental health and improved performance at school and work. The community gets a stable workforce, gets an improved economy and improved productivity, and reduces the burden on public health, human services, and the justice system. So I'm gonna, I can figure out how, I'm gonna stop sharing just for a moment and see if there's any questions on that piece. Looks like Al has his hand up.
Oh,
Maybe not.
well, I guess I could ask maybe one. In terms of the what kind of proposal that maybe you that you're working on, perhaps, what kind of some of the.
Great. So with that, I will share my other slideshow, which is about a project on 4th Street Southeast here in Rochester, just to give you the overview of that project. Let's see. Okay. Do you see 4th Street Southeast redevelopment? Great. So this is a housing project that Three Rivers is attempting to get funded and rendering there of what it might look like. This will be our 4th time to attempt to get funding from the state for this project. We actually started buying property along 4th Street Southeast in 2013, so 11 years ago. That's how long it takes to get a housing project together. So we first applied for it in 2020. The reason we're applying again this year is because we were able to get more geography points, and I won't get too far into that, but I'll just say that the state takes every geography down to the last block and says whether it's in need of affordable housing or not. And this particular site, even though it's been on a transit corridor, it's been downtown adjacent, Rochester is a top job center. It was a great site all these years, but we haven't had very many geography points from the state, and that changed in 2024. So we were able to leverage that change in geography points. We also added 3-bedroom units to the project because there's a huge demand for the 3-bedroom units in Rochester. That is giving us more points. And then we added additional energy conservation, also balconies or patios on almost all the units, and a community room that's connected to the outdoors. So again, this is pretty technical information, but a year ago, our application was 108 points. We're now sitting at 134 points, which is much more likely to be funded. And in case you're not familiar, here's the site that we're talking about. So downtown Rochester is on the left. If you can kind of orient yourself, that's 63 or Broadway. And then our project site is the blue box. So we're right on 4th Street Southeast, a block away from Mayo Memorial Park. Roscoe's Barbecue Shack is in between there, close to Riverside Elementary and the Government Center. So the sort of light green is called a transit-oriented development corridor. That's a city designation saying that they want this area to become more densely populated. So they want more multifamily housing there. And it's also a priority transit network, which means there's going to be more bus service and other public transit. And I see there's a question, so I'm going to stop sharing.
Excellent. Yes. So my question is, that's not the Rossi Auto Body location, is it? That's across the street. That's a different multi-family that's across from that. So you guys are right next to Roscoe's, is that where that's at? Or I'm just getting...
Yep, let me put the map back up. So we're between 7th and 8th. It's currently 4 single-family homes right here.
Okay.
And you'll have to forgive me. I'm a little bit new in my role, so I'm not sure Auto Body Center. I can tell you that this is the Holiday gas station that recently turned to, I think, a Circle K. Yeah. So then there's a block, and then this is our site.
Okay, Carl, so I can help you on that. It's one block east of Roscoe's and on the north side of the road. Our family built a house on 7th Avenue like in the late 1800s. So it's one block east. And Laura, we got to meet. That's a great project you got going. I have inside, you're going to get it done this year. Are you collaborating with First Homes?
Yes. First Homes actually owns one of the parcels on our site, and they have donated it to us. Good, good.
We got to get together. You and I are on the same track, my friend.
Okay, excellent. So I'll share the site plan. So this is 4th Street Southeast, going across the bottom there. We're going to have this sort of grayed out area is a driveway to underground parking. So the building sits fairly close to the streets and the avenues, and there'll be sort of a main entrance here, and then an outdoor play area in more or less the front yard. And then this will be an indoor community room. And then this space that we're calling an indoor play space, it'll be sort of like an indoor playground for younger kids, which I happen to have a 6-year-old, and I'll tell you, in those winter days, you need somewhere to go to burn off the energy for sure.
This is a wonderful project. How many 3-bedrooms would you have? Because that is a huge need in town. Yep. Do you only have the one, or do you have multiples?
We will have 9 3-bedrooms, 18 2-bedrooms, and 9 1-bedrooms.
Good. Excellent. What a project.
Yep. So first floor, second floor, pretty similar layout. So altogether it's 36 units. These are the elevations, which I don't know how familiar you are with architecture, but it's the view from straight on each side, south, northeast, and west. So income limits, because of the funding we're seeking, we're going to be looking at 60 or 50% AMI. And so it sort of shows you that's around $50,000 or $40,000, depending on the size of your household. A couple example households, and this is very similar to the other presentation, but if you've got a single full-time elementary school teacher with 3 kids, that person is going to qualify at 60% AMI, and they could move in here. The rents are listed for 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedroom. And we follow the county HRA housing standards so that the housing choice vouchers that I mentioned can be used. Same slide about the jobs. Here's the anticipated timeline. Our application actually is due July 11th. We won't hear back until December 24th. And best case scenario, we have construction startup in spring of 25 and lease up in fall of 25. So I think I want the most important concept for you guys to understand is that this housing demand is really huge, right? But the problem is we've been working on 36 units since 2013. We're going to spend roughly $16 million if we get it funded. That's almost $500,000 per unit to get it funded. When it's up, it's going to make a huge difference for 36 families, but you still have like 875 families that are still cost burdened in Rochester, right? So the scale of the problem is really difficult, and the state, as we heard from Olivia, the state's really put a lot of resources into housing in the last year, which is great, and we appreciate it. But I think it's the resources and the dedicated resources that are needed to really move the needle. So I feel like Three Rivers is very excited to be working on this project, and we've gotten huge community support, and especially this year because we got those additional geography points. The city and the coalition provided additional funding more than they had last year, which makes the project more viable. But we need like 5 or 6 more Three Rivers out there working. Plus, we need the private sector working. Plus, we need individual property owners to be building ADUs. The problem is just really, really huge and is going to require a lot of different actions to get us to that sort of better place. So that's, I suppose those are more editorializing comments on my part, but I just wanted to share that's my perspective. Housing's really huge. I should say quickly that Three Rivers is also working on a project called Restoration Glen, which will be new housing in partnership with Bear Creek Church. And so it's that site kind of near Apache Mall, Trader Joe's area. They got funded last year in 2023, but the project is running into a number of little hiccups like additional traffic on that road, and the city and county are not totally in agreement about what has to happen to deal with the additional traffic. So we aren't going to be able to break ground on that one until 2025. So it's in process, and I'm not nearly as familiar with that particular project, but just to let you know, that is also in the wings.
Okay. Thank you.
Just to let you know, there's tons of work being done behind the scenes, and there's this thing called Universal Housing Code, which is going to help out immensely. Universal Housing Code. So we need to get together.
Okay, will do.
Any questions or comment from anybody? Thank you.
Well,
Kyle,
I do have I do have a comment on the ADU circumstance. So we were in the infancies of trying to get an ADU built on our property. 18 times we went back and forth with the building process, and by the time it got approved, our building costs had tripled in between the whole thought process. We worked with the best planning agent that there is. It's called Paradise Plans. I don't know if you're familiar with Brent, and he had never seen something get rejected from the city 18 times. Needless to say, they weren't really in the thought process of probably doing ADUs. But needless to say, so the ADU piece of the puzzle would really be nice to do, but it is unattainable.
Yeah, I know that the city of Rochester has been working more on the ADUs in the last 12 months or so. So I don't know when your experience was, but I absolutely believe that it is not as easy as it sounds. And part of why it's not as easy as it sounds is because the cost of construction is astronomical, right? So who wants to build what's essentially a tiny home for $400,000? That's crazy. I mean, that's not totally out of line as far as housing. We're not talking about something you can build for $50,000. You can't even build a garage for $50,000, for gosh sakes. So,
no,
the ADU piece is complicated, and government can do more to make it realistic.
Is the city helping you with some TIF financing or some other extraordinary means and innovative thinking?
The city is. Last year, we did TIF financing for the same project, which of course never came to fruition. And this year they switched gears, and instead of a $50,000 TIF, they gave us a $540,000 contribution, made possible because they had gotten additional state aid specifically for housing. So that's been excellent. The city's been excellent for us to deal with. Mm-hmm.
Any one quick question? Otherwise, we're going to move on to the next topic. Anybody has any more comment? John, okay. Thank you, Laura, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah. John, you're on, John, about MOVE.
Okay. Well, thank you all. Let me just introduce myself. My name is John Edmonds, and I'm currently the DEI coordinator for Olmsted County. And we've been involved in a project called MOVE, which is an acronym for Mobilizing Olmsted Voices for Equity. Otherwise known, some of you may know, have been hearing about Community Council. And so this is the MOVE Community Council. And I'm going to share, I've got a presentation here, which will hopefully answer your questions about MOVE. Okay. Okay. Can you all see that?
Yes.
All righty then. All right. So, as I said, Community Council, that was the name that we were going with for over a year and a half. And then the group that we had put together, which we called the design team, came up with the name MOVE, Mobilizing Olmsted Voices for Equity. Now, this was the product of a collaboration that started really back in it started back in 2017, but during that time, and I have another slide that'll sort of illustrate that, we had some parallel processes going on. We had the statewide statewide health improvement program, the joint study on race and as a public health issue, and then we had One Olmsted. All of them working very similarly and with some similar goals of really promoting and supporting equity and diversity in our government activities. So here's a timeline. Back in 2017, the county board approved a resolution called One Olmsted, and this really dedicated and committed the county to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Out of that resolution came One Olmsted work group, which began to really put into practice, put into reality that commitment. At the same time, we had the public health and statewide health improvement happening, where they were going along, as I said, kind of moving along in a similar direction. And then we had in 2020, we had the joint, or from 2020 to 2022, we had the joint study. I think all of us came to a conclusion just in this sort of serendipitous way. I mean, we in One Olmsted really believed in this idea of getting community's voice involved in the operations of the county. We've had attempts to do that in some of our advisory committees and in some of our other kinds of work groups, but it's always been a kind of ad hoc process. I mean, where we've set up a group and then said, "Oh, let's involve the community. We want to have the community's voice involved," and then we tend to kind of get the usual suspects. I mean, we reach out and we get some folks to come in, and it's generally one or two or three folks from the community who sit on these advisory boards and committees. And that puts them in a difficult position, and it doesn't really give us as good a feel for the community as we'd hope for. As SHIP moved along and in their process, they came to a realization that they needed a community leadership team to put all of these principles into play. And in joint study, they also one of the 72 recommendations that they came up with, one of which is to create a sort of a group to sort of oversee the work of and progress of those recommendations. So we started to realize that we were also moving in that same direction. And so we said, all right, let's really build a community council. So one of the things that we did in 2020, well, toward the end of 2022, was we said, okay, so what should that group look like, and what should their mission be? So we determined that the group should be made up of folks from the community, a diverse group of community folks, working with some staff support, Olmsted County staff support. And their charge was really to build the architecture for the community council. What was it? We were gonna build this from the ground up. What was this council going to look like? What was it going to do? How was it going to function? Who was going to be on it? All of those questions were posed to the design team to come up with answers to. The other thing that was happening, again, in this process, was that of late, actually, was the goal. The Olmsted County developed a series of goals and strategic priorities, one of which is community trust and engagement. And that fits perfectly with the notion of the community council and MOVE. So as we talked about some of the work that the council is going to be involved in, we realized that we wanted them to reach back into their respective communities and get feedback, get input from their cohorts. And how we're going to do that is using some of the IAP2 spectrum of public participation. So we're going to train folks. I mean, one of the things that we're building into this concept is training the members of the community council in how to do facilitation, how to do how to conduct these kinds of meetings, and and so we're really looking at the work of the council being more toward, well, it's going to involve all of the different elements here, both inform, consult, involve, and collaborate. But we're thinking that the heart of the work is going to be at the collaboration level. So what is MOVE? So MOVE is a diverse group of community members. What we're trying to do is and one of the things that the design team spent quite a bit of time on is defining who is community, what is community, and what does that look like, and who, if we were going to have a community group that's representative of everyone, how would we go about doing that? What was that going to look like? We also talked about calling the members connectors, because because essentially that's what we're wanting them to do, is connect their constituents in the community with leadership and programs in the county. And we're expecting them to engage the communities that they represent on a regular basis, to provide information to them, but also to get feedback from them to bring to the county. And we're counting on that lived experience. We're really, I mean, we believe very strongly that lived experience is essential to the county's ability to create programs that are meaningful and to create programs that don't cause harm. I mean, we're wanting to hear from folks who are experiencing these programs as to what the impact on them is. Our initial focus as we begin is going to be on public health related topics. And by public health, I'm not just talking about the public health department, but I'm also talking about public health sort of writ large. I mean, so if we talk about the social determinants of health, we are going to be talking about housing, education, health, access to services, etc. And as I said, we're looking at creating a two-way communication loop between the county and the community. So as I said, we spent quite a bit of time trying to define who the community connector should be. And this is just an example. It's not the entire example, but this is just the categories of people and identities that we think are important to be part of this. We also recognize the concept of intersectionality, and so there may be members of MOVE who have several identities and brings those to the work. So I can't tell you just right offhand, because one of the questions we get asked often is, how many people is this going to be? And if we look at if we just count the number of categories here, and let's say there's two from each, like Noah's Ark, we're going to have two from each category. You can sort of do the math. The math is simple, but as I said, there may be people with multiple identities. There may be some identities that we haven't even figured out yet, that we're going to want. So we're thinking, probably estimating that somewhere between probably 20 and 30, maybe 35, will be the number of members ideally that we're looking for. So one of the things that, so what the design team did, when I said they were really charged with building the architecture, one of the first things that we did right out of the box was ask these folks, and the design team, by the way, was made up of 9 community members and 5 staffing support. So one of the things they did right out of the box was researching other jurisdictions and looking at what have other jurisdictions done, of councils or community organizations that they put together. And I mean, we looked across the country, and we had some, and we actually went and talked to some folks in other parts of the country as to what their experiences have been, what some of the barriers have been, what some of the mistakes that they made in the beginning, and so on. So we did that, sort of our due diligence, I think, in looking at how this thing might work, how it has worked in other places, and so on. We developed a work plan. As I said, we spent a lot of time defining what is community. We developed a mission and vision statement. We looked at what is out of scope for the council. What are the things we're not going to be doing? How we're going to prioritize. We did the membership, roles and responsibilities, etc. So what's next? So where we are now, we started, by the way, in January of 2023 was our first meeting. We met every other week without exception through April of this year. And at that point, so that's about 15 months, we decided that we were ready to move to the next phase, which is where we are now, where we're bringing the word out to the community. We're doing some community information sessions, lunch and learn opportunities. We've got applications set up and out there. We're actively looking to recruit people who are interested in committing to this work. And we're not setting a deadline for, like between now and, let's say, September is the end of application time. We're going to keep an open, rolling, application process going. But hopefully we'll have a critical mass by the end of this quarter, and we'll be able to start with the implementation phase. We're sort of in the recruitment, not sort of, we're in the recruitment phase now. We'll move to the implementation phase in the fourth quarter, where we'll be doing training, as I said, on the IEP2 tools, on DEI facilitation, team building, etc. If you have questions, I'm certainly willing to entertain those questions. But if you have other things, comments or questions that you have after this that you'd like to get answers to, this is our email address. And also, these are the folks who are part of from the county side, the support folks to move. So thank you. Any questions? Let me stop sharing here.
Any question from anybody? If not, I'll ask one. Okay, I'm mindful of time. What might be the work product of the group of this council? John?
The work product?
Yeah.
Um, that's a great question. What we're thinking is, the way we've been talking about this is, when let's say we do a listening session in a particular community, and they come up with something, a question or a concern, or just something they want to bring back to the county. What we're going to do what the council is going to do is, every question is going to be triaged and prioritized, and we have a workflow process, so that so questions come in, we're gonna tag them basically, and then we will there are several things that could happen. One is, if it's just a simple information seeking question, we'll assign folks to go get the information, or or in that process, we'll get the appropriate person in the county to come and give an answer, and then we'll take that answer back. If it's something else, a more of a detailed issue, we will set up a work group, which will be comprised of folks from, not everybody, but a subgroup of folks in MOVE, and then whoever the appropriate person in the county is, we'll get them involved in working up and coming up with either a plan or a solution, or somehow response to those questions. And then we're going to have regular meetings with the community, where we will come back and give feedback on those issues that they've brought up. So as I said, we've put in place a process so that we don't lose questions or issues that come up, and we'll have a record of so what the resolution of those questions or issues are. We're also hoping, one of the other things we're looking to do is, when something happens so if a county program is going to come up with some new initiative, that they will reach out to MOVE to get feedback on how this is being received, or how it's being perceived in the community. So the communication will flow both ways. I mean, so it may be that the county says, or an advisory committee, for example, says, how is this working out there in the community? And we'll be able to reach out into the community to get feedback, and bring that back to the advisory committee or the work group, or whatever it is on the county side.
Okay, thank you. Last chance for questions, comments from anybody. If not, thank you, John, again. Miriam, thank you. Yeah. And mindful of time here, we're coming close to the ending. I did have a couple of things to talk about, but I think I'll dispense with that. One is that I'll just talk quickly about agenda. I was going to mention about this, the Mayor Norton has this thing called Vision 2050, and I'll put the link later when I summarize and in the meeting minutes, so you can understand a little bit about. Basically, is for the city to really gather information about what the city should look like according to people's point of view. 2050, what the city ought to be. There'll be also some kind of survey going out, and there'll be also conversation that will take place in Rochester Fest, as well as Thursday on First. That there'll be a booth there for folks to have questions and answers there. And then lastly, there's a thing called Community Building Fund. The city's Rochester's got this funding for anybody that has some good ideas and actions. They can apply for the funding from the city. That will be the community building fund. Again, I'll have links here for you to explore later. Okay, and nothing else, then I would mindful of time and thank you for everybody again, for attending and for presenting. And we hope to see you soon again. Bye. Okay.
Thank you.